system. And we're going to look at just some regular computer maintenance, as well as just some tools that SolidWorks has to help with that. So a little bit about us here at MCAT. You know, just some of our basic info there. We've got offices, Lakewood, Boulder, up in Oregon, and New Mexico and Washington. We offer things such as, obviously, your SolidWorks support and various webinars like this, but we also do contract engineering, 3D printing, SolidWorks training, open labs, as well as some lunch and learns. So if you're not familiar with that, please get in touch with us, and we might be able to show you some more information on those. Okay, so to get started, what we're going to look at is this scenario right here. Okay, so which one of these is going to perform better? You've got a clean car and you've got the dirty car. Well, it turns out it's the clean car. So I can tell my car, these are not my cars, but I can tell that mine typically performs better after I get a car wash. Not really scientific, but that certainly might be biased after it's clean. But I did some more research here, and the Mythbuster guys actually verified that dirty cars are not more fuel efficient. So I think that supports my claim that a clean car is going to run better than a dirty one. So very similar, you know, much like that, clean computer is also going to perform better. But just for background on that, the myth was that maybe the dirt would function similar to the dimples on a golf ball as far as the flow. But we're going to go through some various topics here about the computer maintenance. We're going to talk about why and when to clean a computer, and then the meat of this is going to be on how to actually clean your computer and optimize your software. So some of this might be review if you've already researched some on this topics. It hasn't really changed in recent versions of SolidWorks, but I guess SolidWorks has added a few tools to actually help with the process. So as far as why and when, so the why clean, prevent overheating, increase computer performance, free up space. So all this stuff is going to help with efficiency as well as organization, and possibly you have some software problems where this can help. So when to clean, this is all, you know, can't really say when you need to clean your computer. Some people might do it before a major software upgrade, or others might stick to a regular schedule. But it might be when you finish a certain project and there's a little bit of a lull, or maybe every month, or maybe it's a situation that sort of forces you to look at this. Maybe you're experiencing some software stability issues. So now really to get into how to do this. So I basically have slides and screen captures showing all the steps here. So I'm not doing it live as we're going over this webinar. But step one is really to physically clean the computer. Then we're going to back up important data, possibly update software, your system software. And you're going to get rid of some clutter. There might be some extra files, stuff like that on your machine. And then there's various cleanup tools that are going to help. And that's where you can get the most performance. And then you may even have to do a clean or fresh install of the software. So physically clean, you know, you can see in that picture right there, if your machine looks like that, definitely want to take the cover off and clean it a little bit. So, you know, obviously the dust can affect temperature on the heat sinks, on the fans. So that certainly can affect temperature, which is definitely going to affect performance. So if you do see stuff like that, you probably want to go ahead and use one of the compressed air cans. If you do that, it's just advised, obviously, to worry, careful with power and static. If you use the compressed air, you usually want to put something in there to stop those fans from spinning at too high of an RPM. You know, a drink straw or something like that usually works. And you obviously want to make sure you're blowing the dust out of the computer, not just off the fan. So that's pretty straightforward, and I guess while you're doing that, maybe you also want to check into your connections, cable connections. So backing up data, so this big process of sort of cleaning up your computer might be a good idea to start with backing up. Maybe you have regularly scheduled backups, or if not, maybe you want to pick some of the files and be diligent here about backing up all the important data. So maybe it's entire system or just specific files. So then we're talking about updating the software. So maybe you have a whole group of Windows updates, and you've gotten sick of those things being automatically installed, and so now all of a sudden it's caught up to you, and there's a handful of Windows updates. A lot of those can definitely be helpful, and they can also be security risks. So it might be a good time to handle those as well. So we're basically talking about antivirus and your Windows updates. We're not talking about SolidWorks yet. Uninstall and remove. So if you've got a bunch of clutter on the system, or you've got a bunch of programs that you're not using, now would be a good time to uninstall those before we clean up everything and do some of the disk tools. You might as well remove what you don't use. You can also look at your MS config, and see what is being turned on startup. You might have something like Skype or Dropbox or something like that that's turning on every time you start up the machine. And if you're not using that daily, you might just want to have that turned off on startup and then start the program only when needed. And maybe you have a whole bunch of, I don't know, pictures from vacations or something like that that have been stuck in your computer. You've already burned them to a disk. Well, might as well get those things off the computer if you've backed them up. If you don't need them there, we're trying to really get files off the machine that we don't need, so then we can do the disk defrag and organize things a little bit better. And now we're going to get into a bunch of the tools. So SolidWorks has some. SolidWorks RX is one of the tools that's included when you install the software. Disk cleanup is Microsoft tool, and also the disk defragmenter. So we'll start with the Microsoft disk cleanup. So you can see that's just under your system tools. And it has several options as far as what it can actually do for you. But for the most part, it's removing stuff off your system. So it's freeing up disk space. So it'll scan, give you an idea of the amount of disk space you can gain, and you can also see it's going to go ahead and tell you what it's removing. But it could be temporary files, certainly could be the recycle bin, lots of different sections, or it can even archive files. So it's a good place to start. But if you're not familiar with the SolidWorks RX, this is the real nice tool that is more SolidWorks specific. So it is included, it's automatically installed with the software. So under your Start All Programs, you'll look under your SolidWorks directory and you'll see SolidWorks Tools. And the SolidWorks RX, it has several different tabs up top. It's commonly used as a problem capture and log file capture. So if you are experiencing stability issues and you're working with our support team, this tool can definitely be very helpful in getting to the bottom of what might be happening that might be causing some of those issues. It'll log as well as has a video record, so we can see what you're doing on your screen as the problem's occurring. Okay, but what this also has is the System Maintenance tab. But while we're in this tool, you might as well click on the Diagnostics tab, and it'll just point out if you have problems with some of the hardware requirements. All right. Commonly, you might have a supported graphics card, but maybe the driver you're running is not the SolidWorks supported version. So this will do a quick scan, and it's also nice that it has the ability to download the driver. So just disclaimer here, or just reminding you that the main cause of crashes in SolidWorks is related to graphics card driver combinations. and the newest graphics driver for your card isn't necessarily the best for SolidWorks. So the SolidWorks and card developers, they work on having a driver that is tested for SolidWorks usage. But as far as what we're going to be using this tool for with this topic, we would go to the System Maintenance tab, and it has various tasks that it can do. So many tools that can help your SolidWorks performance. So you have the checklist there. It does have the options at the bottom where it has check disk and also the windows, the defragmenter. We're not going to look at running those through this tool, but you certainly could. We'll look at how to run those manually outside of SolidWorks RX. It's the exact same thing, just this would be, with RX it's nice because you could kick everything off and then walk away from the machine and let it do all these tasks. But it does things. It will clean up the backup directory, temp directories, Windows temp directories, and so it's even doing some of the things that disk cleanup was also doing. So this is what the interface looks like once you start that up. You can schedule the task, but your system would have to be, can't be asleep to run those tasks. It does have to be logged in. So it tells you what it's going to do, and then as it's complete, it's going to show you the green check marks there. And so that's what the SolidWorks RX does. Now if you look at the disk defragmenter, so this could have been kicked off by the RX, or it can also be done under your system tools again, under your programs. And it basically groups related files together so that they're accessed quicker. It does have an analyze button, okay, and it will basically tell you how fragmented it is. And in general, if it's 10% fragmented or so like that, it would tell you, it would suggest running it. But you can basically see in that bar graph how it ends up basically organizing and grouping the files. So we've already talked about physically cleaning it as well as decluttering your system. If you want to run a clean SolidWorks install, or also called a fresh install, okay, as far as if that's necessary, it might be a good idea if you're running into stability issues. Okay, and the general process of a SolidWorks clean install is you're uninstalling the software and removing all the setting files, all the program files, just basically anything related to the software, and then you're reinstalling it. So maybe you do this when you're installing a major release. Maybe you decide then's a good time. But as far as whether or not you do this regularly, I'd say that's probably not likely, unless you are running into stability issues, and then it might be high up on the list of things to try, provided you already have the installation media. So if you are going to go through this step, just sort of the checklist to make sure that you're ready to go with it, is you need to have the files that you're going to install with. It might be the DVD, or maybe you need to actually download the files first, to get the latest version. You can go straight to the latest service pack instead of trying to install from the DVD and then upgrade later. Don't be surprised at how long it might take to download the complete data set. It is over 7 gig now, so it can definitely take, depending on your internet speed, can take a good while. You also want to check into privileges. You're going to want to be able to disable antivirus. That definitely speeds things up, but it also might be critical to allow the install to write to the registry. So you want to go ahead and find these things out before you jump right in and start doing the uninstall. So you're going to need local admin rights. You're going to need your serial number. Once you do the clean uninstall and get rid of all that stuff, it's not going to remember your serial number. You're going to have to type it in as you do the install. So the steps for doing this, once we've gone through that checklist and you decide you're ready to go, is you want to copy your settings. You want to back up your files. Okay, then transfer the activation. Then you're going to uninstall and get rid of all the extra folders. Then you start reinstalling and then restore those settings. So SolidWorks has a tool to help with copying those settings. And it's also great if you get a new computer, you can use this tool, or helping another user their system to match your system. So it is also under your SolidWorks Tools right there next to SolidWorks RX. But it allows you to specify what you want to save out, what settings you want to basically save out. So it could be system options, all your SolidWorks system options where you're telling it where to look for templates, where your design library, all that stuff. And this is all optional. You don't have to do all or none. Menu customization. Maybe you've set up your toolbars in a certain way that you really like, your mouse gestures and your shortcut keys, as well as the layout and if you have saved views. But when you click on Copy Settings Wizard, this is what the interface looks like. It's the same thing you would click to restore your settings. And I do this for just a backup anyway, even if I'm not planning on doing any sort of fresh install. I just back up my settings so that I can test various things and always restore it back to the way it was that I liked. But when you click Save Settings, there you can see the checkboxes for what you're trying to back up, and you want to pay attention to where it's saving that file. Okay, SolidWorks files. Anything in the SolidWorks installation directories is going to be removed when we do this clean, when we do the uninstall. So if this data is located in other locations, you should be okay. If it's on the network, well, we're not going on the network, on the server to delete some folders. We are just removing it from our local system. But if you do save things into your installation directories, your templates, design library, sheet formats, weldment profiles, or even your toolbox data, those are things that you'd want to back up. So you want to transfer the activation too. If you're going to be doing the fresh install on this same machine, which is basically what we're doing here, this step is kind of optional because when you reinstall, it'll recognize that it's the exact same machine that is attempting the activation again, and it'll be fine. But it is safer, I guess, to do this, just to transfer the activation. But if I would stick with it. It's certainly not required because if it is the exact same computer ID, it will recognize that that machine's already holding onto the activation. Now, if you want to install the SolidWorks off another machine that you're done with and you don't transfer the license first, then as far as activations go, that machine is still holding up, it's still tying up one of the serial numbers activations. So that could be a problem, and it could prevent you from installing on your new machine. So if you're not familiar, on that Help pull-down menu, right there you'll see near the bottom is Transfer License. And this is what the interface looks like. You would select, if you have simulation, it would be listed under products. So whatever products you might have, you just would select all and then tell it to transfer automatically over the internet. So at this point, we've backed up the folder, we've backed up the files, we've saved our settings, and we've transferred the license. So now we're ready to uninstall SolidWorks. So the order here is if you have third-party add-ins, stuff like that, you would uninstall those first. If you have, it might be e-drawings or anything that's listed as a separate item in your programs that are installed, your add-remove programs, you would get rid of those first. Okay, then what you do is older versions of software. You might still have 2013 installed and 2014, or maybe you just have 2013 e-drawings installed, but you start with the older versions first, and then you jump to the current version. And you'll notice I have advanced options highlighted, so that's pretty new to SolidWorks, but it does more than just remove the program. So it's stuff we could do manually, but it automates the process. So when you're uninstalling software, under advanced options, so this would be the later step where I'm uninstalling, in this case, the current version, which I guess was 2013 when I did these screen captures. But you can see in the checkboxes, it's telling you everything that it's going to remove related to this version of the software. But you can see by default that advanced options is just going to stay standard. Okay, it's getting rid of the program and the folders. But if you click that change, it gives you some deeper options, I guess we could say. So adding checks to those boxes, I can get rid of the programs, the standard stuff, but I can also tell it to remove the registry. So that's going to get rid of custom settings, serial numbers, So basically that's the key element of doing a clean install. The data files and folders, that's going to get rid of your custom stuff, such as your toolbox. Again, if those files are on the network server, it's not going to get rid of those. It's just on the default on this machine. So you can see that bottom one I have unselected, okay, download files and folders. If I've downloaded, Service Pack 5 of the software or something, I might like to keep that for a little bit. So it might be 7 gig of data, so I certainly don't want to download it again. So if there's a chance that I think I might want to keep that around, I just uncheck that as well. But all this is optional, and if you did scroll down in that list where it tells you what it's going to remove, you can see all those. And then even once this is completely done and it's uninstalled, well, it does tell me, hey, this might require a reboot. So it's removing the software. And so even when that's done, I do actually go back and double check that I don't see any install folders. And I'll show you that list in a little bit. But what's optional here is prerequisites. So when you install the software or for it to function, there's some prerequisite programs that have to be on the computer for it to run. If it doesn't see those, SolidWorks will install them. When you uninstall software, it does not automatically uninstall these because there could be plenty of other programs that require those. So you can see we're talking about Visual C++, various versions, .NET framework clients. So you could, to really go deep on the clean reinstall, you would get rid of all this stuff. Keep in mind, if you do that, other programs might not be too excited about that. So you would do this right before you do the fresh install, because when these are gone and then you reinstall SolidWorks, it will notice they're gone and then it will install the correct versions. So based on some error message or some installation logs that we've seen, if you do have some error messages appear during your install, sometimes this is what we do. We step you through the process of uninstalling some prerequisites and reinstalling them, and then the software can install correctly. So these are definitely required items, and as long as you are uninstalling and reinstalling, your other programs that depend on them will be just fine. So these were what I was talking about. After this is done, I double check just to make sure that folders are deleted, the installation folders. Sometimes I've seen, like, it might say SolidWorks and then parentheses 2, and that might have been from a previous install where instead of overwriting a folder, it made a new folder. So really at this point, I know I've uninstalled the program, so this would be when I scan my C drive and just see if there's some folders still existing that at this point are definitely unneeded, because SolidWorks and all add-ins and all previous releases are gone from my system at this point. So those are just some general locations to check. SolidWorks data, okay, that is the default location where it puts all the toolbox stuff in. I would assume I've backed up anything that's important at this point. But yeah, sometimes you will see parentheses 2 beside things, and that would be related to maybe not completely uninstalling things before you did a previous reinstall, and it did not overwrite, it created a new folder. So the registry information. So when you install the software and you create custom settings, you put in your serial number, this is where it writes that information, so you definitely have to be real cautious. One of those advanced options was doing this stuff. Okay, it was basically removing the registry settings. But just to go over what it's removing and where that is, but keep in mind, be very cautious. Anytime if you're not comfortable doing anything in the registry, then don't do it. You can definitely mess things up, because if you delete the wrong keys or you change and edit some stuff, it can definitely affect other programs if you're not being very specific that it's the SolidWorks ones you're changing. And so yeah, you definitely want to be careful about that, and you can easily back this up. But at the left, you're seeing that HKCU, so that's H key current user. The other one is H key local machine. And so it's a folder structure, but as far as how you get in there, you just click your start button, and then in that search where the cursor will be blinking, you just type in regedit, R-E-G-E-D-I-T, and that would bring up the registry editor. You can definitely back this up. So based on being cautious here, that would be a good idea. So you can export the entire HKey local machine folder, something like that. And then you would sort through those and remove those folders if they exist. So at this point, we've uninstalled and we've gotten rid of the excess info. So now we're doing the reinstall. So I would go ahead and reboot the system. Make sure you log in as admin. And because you did a reboot, double check again that you've disabled the antivirus software. If you have the data set downloaded already, the entire Service Pack 5 or whatever version it might be, you can just browse in there and double-click the setup file. That will kick off the installation manager. And when the installation manager starts, there is, if I wanted to get the complete download only, the complete download file set to maybe use on several machines, at the bottom of that, you'll see that radio button, download only. That would have been what I checked previously to obtain the entire data set. But I would be doing the regular install, and then as needed, you would click the check boxes and type in the serial numbers. Obviously, those aren't real serial numbers, but you can see they are different. And I want to point that out because if you said, well, I have SolidWorks Premium, but it also has work group, PDM, and simulation, that's all covered under your one initial premium serial number. So you never need to put check marks and type in the same serial number for any of these additional products. You only need to tick those check boxes and type in serial numbers if they are different. If you have a network serial number, when you do a network install, it installs everything. It looks at your license file to verify what you're entitled to. You know, when you turn an add-in on, it's pinging your license file, so it doesn't matter what you type in here, unless perhaps you have multiple serial numbers. As long as they're the same serial number, you don't need to put anything in any of those extra boxes. So you would specify the installation location. You could possibly turn off background downloader if you want, but you would just scan this and see where it's putting stuff. Be cautious if it's creating parentheses 2 beside something, then you might want to double check and see if you did successfully remove all those files. And in this screenshot, you can see it says installing Microsoft C++. So that's just an example of it recognized that I didn't have the prerequisite because I had uninstalled it. So it will install it from the data set. Again, right there, there's the .NET framework. Then SolidWorks is going to complete the install, and then I go ahead and restart the computer again. But I guess it's worth mentioning, when you are doing that reinstall, whatever data set you're using, when you do an additional upgrade later, or maybe you do a repair, it's going to look in that location for the same data set. So if you install from the DVD and you try to run that repair, it's going to say where is the DVD, so you put it in there. If you do have the download and you run the setup from there, it's going to be looking for that location. That's what I prefer. I just keep the download in the same location on my system, and then if I ever need to reinstall or do a repair, it knows to look right there. But if you do that and you delete it later, your software is still going to function fine, but it's when you try to run maybe an upgrade as opposed to a reinstall, or you try to run a repair, it's going to yell at you and basically say, where is this file set? And you would either need to put the DVD in or recreate that data set. But as far as restore settings, so at this point I've done the fresh install. So now all I have to do is basically start up the software and activate it, restore my template and data folders from the backup. I can go back to that copy settings wizard and do the load settings. I still go back to the SolidWorks RX and check the graphics card driver. New versions of the software have different graphics card driver combos, so it's always worth double checking. And don't forget to turn back on your antivirus software once everything's done. And then after those settings, I just restart the computer one more time and then start up the software and create a couple test parts. But just to recap what we talked about there, initially the why and when, it's hard to say, but it just basically might be when there's a new release, might be when you're experiencing some problems, or just at regular intervals. And then as far as what we did, well, First, you want to get the dust out of the machine. Go ahead and make sure the hardware can operate optimally. You back up the data, update software, so that would be such as your Windows updates, antivirus updates, uninstall, remove the unnecessary stuff, maybe turn off some programs so that it doesn't start on your computer startup. Then run some cleanup tools. We looked at SolidWorks RX, how we can kick off some of those to get rid of the temp files. We looked at the Microsoft cleanup. Then we went through the SolidWorks clean install. Okay, how you're basically uninstalling all major versions of the software and add-ins. And you're getting rid of program data, program files, just all the extra stuff that is installed, all the data that's installed when you install the program. So we're basically trying to wipe that information off the system. Then reinstall it all, straight from the fresh download. And when that's done, just like we saw, you want to restore everything to get it to function the way you're used to. So these are some general topics, definitely worth giving that a try. You'll be surprised at how just cleaning the temp files out periodically can definitely have a big effect on performance. And just saying again, because it's important, check the graphics card driver combo. Many problems can be caused by the incorrect driver. Okay, so that's, hope you guys found that informative. We're going to stop there. There are some other webinars coming up. One, I think the next one in early June is going to be related to a new SolidWorks product called Inspection, which is basically looking at the GD&T tolerancing, and it's a pretty exciting product. So if you have a chance, you'll probably be emailed information about that. So please sign up and join us for that in early June. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good one. Goodbye.